I think for the financial services sector, the key concern, the key risk that they worry about is not having enough time to make the changes that they may need to take, depending on the outcome of the negotiations between the UK and the European Union. A change management project to move operations from one jurisdiction to another would normally be thought of as a 2 to 3 year project. In theory, under Article 50, they may only have 2 years. No one's clear on whether that period might be extended. No one's clear on whether there might be extra time at the back end of the negotiation in order to make the necessary changes. So there's a concern about whether they need to start to move now, move ahead of any clarity in respect of the negotiations. The second concern is actually one around cost, the viability of their operations going forward. One of the real potential outcomes of the changes is that they may finish up with operations in several different jurisdictions, potentially with legal entities in several different jurisdictions. And whenever that happens, the real potential exists for an increased level of capital cost and pools of liquidity which are trapped in particular jurisdictions. The margins are already tight, and they can ill afford to have a structural solution that increases the overall cost of doing business. That's forcing them to think again about the kind of business that they aspire to do. Rethink their model, rethink the opportunities that they have in Europe, rethink the clients that they might target, and also rethink where they might carry that business on from. Perhaps from a place in Europe, perhaps some of it can be done from the UK, particularly for time zone advantages, or perhaps they might go back to headquarters, head office, and start to use the consolidated balance sheet of the parent company to project into Europe and provide services into Europe, relying upon equivalence or relying upon exceptions and waivers from regulators within Europe. If I was to consider the position in 2020, my hope would be that rather than the end of the process, we'll be in the middle of a process of negotiation and change. Rather than the 2 years that the Article 50 process suggests is available for the resolution of what are extremely difficult and complex issues, my hope is that we'll be in a transition phase in 2020, that there'll be a continuation of rights of access into Europe and into the UK as a reciprocal arrangement, pending the discussion and resolution of what are very difficult regulatory and financial services issues. And that beyond that, there'll be a further period of time, perhaps 2 or 3 years, in which companies who are not comfortable with the outcome of those negotiations will have an additional opportunity to change their business model. So rather than 2 years, we have a 5 or 6 year period in which to deal with these issues. Brexit does pose some real challenges for the financial services sector because of the uncertainty that it's generated. But with some focus on scenario planning, some thought about a business model going forward, the framing of that discussion with good legal advice about the regulatory framework and structure here in the UK, in the rest of Europe and in the rest of the world, and a sensible and measured influencing of the political debate, there is hope and real reason for confidence that the UK will continue to thrive as a centre for financial services, providing services not only into Europe but into the rest of the world.